Welcome to Surviving Alzheimer's with Mike. I am a 12-year survivor of Alzheimer's disease. Today, we're going to talk about the stages of Alzheimer's. I had a question that was emailed to me, and she wanted to know what stage of Alzheimer's I am right now. And the reason she was asking, her mom had been diagnosed and said she was stage 4. So that's a little confusing because technically there are only 3 stages of Alzheimer's: early, middle, and late. So when someone asks about stage 4, then I have to kind of go back to Googling because different medical institutions have their own scales. So for instance, I Googled Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and they have 5 different stages of Alzheimer's. And just another one that I happened to look at was Penn Medicine. I'm not even sure where they're located. I just know that their website I see quite a bit. So anyway, but those 2 medical institutions have different scale system than the Alzheimer's Association, different from the National Institute on Aging, who both agree that there are only 3 stages. So I guess this has been one of my pet peeves, even when I was doing public speaking in 2015, 16, and 17, that people would ask questions about the stages of Alzheimer's, and we would, repeatedly say, well, there are only 3, but yet you've got medical institutions who are creating their own. And so it's very confusing. So again, I said this is kind of my daily rant, my pet peeve is, and I guess my message would be, in a nice way of trying to make them understand, all you're doing is confusing the public. Why can't we just settle on what the Alzheimer's Association, and more importantly, what the National Institute of Aging says, and that is that there are only 3 stages. So anyway, that was my pet peeve. Now, as far as the question, stage 4, it depends on which. If you're looking at Mayo, then I would probably be stage 2, because stage 1 technically is a pre-stage as far as Mayo is concerned. I didn't even look at 7, and actually there was another one in California, another institution that had 10. So again, my point is, it's confusing. How about if we just try and keep our eye on the ball, and how about if we find a way to slow down Alzheimer's, or maybe even find a cure, instead of worrying about, it's almost like a contest now to see which institution can have the most stages of Alzheimer's. Anyway, moving right along, the topic for today is the stages of Alzheimer's, but we're going to be looking specifically at the early stage, because that's me. I am early stage. I apologize for my voice. I had a really bad head cold last week, lost my voice, so I am on the mend. Okay, we're going to look at 6. There are 6 different symptoms of early stage. The first one, coming up with the right word or name. This is an issue for me, and as recently as a couple of weeks ago. Middle of October, it's nice outside. My wife and I are sitting in the living room having coffee, and I make the comment or ask, what do we want to do for dinner tonight? And I said, it's nice, so I'll just get I've got a Traeger grill and also just a regular barbecue grill. So I thought, I'm not going to get the smoker out, get the Traeger out, but I'll get the barbecue grill out, and maybe we'll just throw on some total blank. Throw on some, not hot dogs, not Polish sausage. Sometimes they make them with beer, bratwurst. Could not come up with the word brat or bratwurst. I usually just call them brats. So anyway, that was a kind of recent example of, I call it my mind blank. I can't come up with, I know the word, I know what it is, I could point to it, I could tell you all about it, but I can't say the word. Second example would be a neighbor that moved in, this was several years ago, moved in down the street. She was a student at Creighton, going to school, medical school. I talked to her, very nice young lady, and we had a nice conversation. Could not remember her name. I mean, I don't know how many times I've talked to different neighbors. They're talking about, I think it might have been Amanda, but I'm not sure. Whatever. I couldn't remember. It was like that file folder in my brain in that cabinet where 3 doors down across the street neighbor lived. Every time I would think of it, it'd get erased. No idea. I have never, and today I can't tell you what her name is. I don't remember. She graduated, she's moved. No idea what her name was. But those are 2 examples that I have of the first one of coming up with the right word or name. Okay, the second is remembering names when introduced to new people. I had this issue at work. We would have, not a lot, but we would have people coming into the office. Some of them were vendors. It might have been finance companies or employees of finance companies. So I had to keep business cards in my desk and that I would rifle through when I knew that someone was coming in that day, that so-and-so from whatever financial or whatever bank would be coming in. I would keep the business cards in my desk. And we had vendors that would come in too for like office equipment, things like that. I always had it on my calendar, or sometimes if it wasn't an appointment with me, but maybe with like our IT manager, then I wouldn't be necessarily, involved, but yet I would see them and say, "Oh, hi, John." I have no idea. Could not. I had a horrible time with, I never forget a face, but I couldn't remember any names. Okay, number 3, having difficulty performing tasks in social or work settings. This was one of the last things that I was dealing with when I was still at work before I went on disability. I had 3 different sets of documents that were basically the same, but they had different states of revision. And I was trying to compile them, and so I could actually go forward with a recommendation about this is what I want to do. I couldn't do it. My brain wouldn't, I couldn't process the information. I couldn't look at one. I would read a paragraph on one, go to the next one, couldn't remember what I read. Then I couldn't remember what was different. And then I couldn't remember what it is that we actually wanted. I ended up having to have one of my managers actually complete it, did it on in a Word document for me. So, but again, I struggled with that. And even trying to do redline documents, if you you use Microsoft Word, or doing a redline document where you're going in and making changes, but it'll just put a red line. I just couldn't process that anymore, which was a problem as far as my work environment. Okay, number 4, forgetting material you just read. When I was newly diagnosed, or even a little bit before I was diagnosed, I like to read. I have a Kindle, and I tend to gravitate now towards series. So the one I'm reading right now is a series of, I think, 15 or 16 books. I'm on like 7. The characters in the book pretty much stay the same, other than the villain, is different with each book, obviously, but I don't have to try to remember new people each time as you would start a new book. Reading a one-off novel, I don't even try it anymore. I look specifically, I like detective series, so I look specifically for a series. But when I was, right when I was at the point of being diagnosed, I had so much stress that I was dealing with because I probably wasn't going to be working anymore. I was only 58. I wasn't ready for retirement. So I had a lot of issues. So my issue began when I was trying to read at night. I always read before I go to sleep. I would have to go each night. I'd have to go back and reread at least one chapter because I couldn't remember what I had read the previous night, and that would kind of, just that little bit of reading a little bit of the previous chapter would start to click, and then I kind of get up to speed, and then I could go ahead and go forward. Okay, number 5, losing or misplacing a valuable object. My wife and I went ring shopping, not for wedding rings, but we went ring shopping several years ago. And in fact, I was still working, and I found a nice titanium ring. I wanted a ring to wear on my right hand. I like jewelry. So we bought the ring, and sometime several years ago, whether I was working outside in the garden, working in the shed, I was doing something, and I probably put it somewhere where I would not lose it, and I would remember where it's at. Well, it didn't happen. It's gone. It's been gone for several years. We've looked for it. We can't find it. I know I put it somewhere. I wouldn't put it up like on the edge of a sink. I put it somewhere where it would have been safe. Anyway, it's gone. The other thing, another one example of this, we just had a Halloween party at our house. We had probably 20 people, neighbors, in our driveway. We set up a big semicircle, and everyone brings their Halloween candy, and the kids come trick-or-treating, and it's like a assembly line. They just walk right through, and we have a lot of fun. We have adult beverages and some snacks. I set that up back by the garage. Well, I needed one of our tables. We have 2 tables. I knew where the one was. I thought I knew where the second table was. I looked. I was all over the basement. The funny thing was, I remembered that I had slid that table in somewhere in the basement, and so that it would fit perfect, and I would know right where it's at. I remember in my mind doing it, but I couldn't remember where that perfect spot was. 20 minutes later, I finally figured out, yeah, it was by our wine refrigerator, but I could not remember. I couldn't find it. I would look, and nothing would jog my memory that this is where the table was sitting. Okay, the last one, number 6, experiencing increased trouble with planning or organizing. This one's a big deal for me. I was always very organized. I was head of operations at the finance company that I worked at, and I wore a lot of different hats. I had to make decisions pretty quickly. Something I was always able to do. I could process new information fast so that I could make an informed decision. And I felt like I was pretty good at it. It's really a problem now. I can get up in the morning when Deborah and I are having coffee and say, okay, well, I know the leaves we got leaves everywhere now. I need to get the power blower out, and it's gonna be nice today. I need to do that. And we've got an issue with one of the shower spout on our downstairs bathroom. I needed to work on that. Anyway, I had like 4 things that I needed to do that day. And we finished coffee. I come up to my office, and I might sit and look out the window for 20 minutes trying to figure out, okay, well, if I do this first, I could do this before lunch, and then at the end of the day, I would get maybe one thing accomplished. But trying to organize my day, if I have multiple things to do, is impossible. So now I have to have one thing. I've got I collect classic rock albums, 70s rock albums, and we'll look at that sometime, the process that I use. But if I'm going to work on that and do other things, that I pick one thing, and that's all I will work on. I can't try to have 3 different things juggling at the same time. It doesn't work anymore. So that is the 6 symptoms that I experience. That is, if you look this up on like the Alzheimer's Association website or the NIA's website, you'll see these are the 6 main symptoms. And as you can see from what I shared today, I do experience all 6. We'll say that when you're in the early stage Alzheimer's, you can still live a very meaningful life. Deborah and I have a lot of fun. I'm still able, I drive, I do our grocery shopping, I pay our bills, still able to do, all of that and still function. I'm, I still think, a good member of society. I'm very social. We do a lot with our neighbors. These are things that you don't, just because you've had an Alzheimer's diagnosis, you don't want to, and that's one of the things that we decided, I'm not going to sit home and wait to die. So I'm going to remain active, socially engaged. So anyway, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see some more, just remember to hit the subscribe button. We appreciate any comments. If you have questions, you can either put it in the comments. I do have my email address on my YouTube page, so you can send me an email if you would like, if you have a question or something that is more confidential that you don't want to put in the comments. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching.